what's the minimum viable fear I can face today? And that's great. Like, it feels like progress. This very clear separation of what's in my control, what's outside, and the fact that I did everything that I could, which was in my control. I think that realizing that very basic, like, Stoic principle was basically like, you actually know, maybe you're just inside your bubble, and actually you do that thing way better than 99% of the world population.
Welcome to Mindful and Driven, the podcast that helps you to not lose sight of what's really important whilst chasing your dreams. Episode 16's guest is Tiago Henriques. He's a Brazilian content creator with nearly 250,000 followers who uses a unique, playful style that his audience loves. He's just released his first book and also has a podcast that is all in Portuguese. He's starting to make the leap to English content too, and I'm sure I found many loyal fans. This is the most I laughed in any of the podcast recordings I've done so far. I hope you enjoy listening. Welcome, Tiago. It's great to have you here. You're the first person to record from my flat.
I'm flattered.
For the people back home, how Tiago knows me is actually quite a funny story. So we both live in Stratford in East London. And in one of my stories on Instagram, he noticed that I live really close to him. So it was kind of a little bit scary and a little bit stalkerish.
A little creepy, yeah.
But now we ended up becoming great friends, and I play football with him, and it's one of those weird things how social media can make you friends in real life.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you sent me that stalkery message.
Yeah, it's true. Thanks for inviting me here. Very happy to be here. First podcast in English.
Yeah.
Podcast/video. So very flattered. And yeah, it's one of those good coincidences, you know. It shows us how social media is great for like meeting like-minded people, and yeah, pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So as Tiago mentioned, most of his content is in Portuguese because he's originally from Brazil. So I've seen his content and it looks amazing, but I often have no idea what it actually means. But he's very good with the visuals. So one thing I want to ask you is, what's some common advice you disagree with?
Yeah, so common advice I disagree with has a lot to do with my content, actually. I talk a lot about creativity, but I like to have an empathetic vision on that topic. So it's like a mixture of creativity and personal development. And a common piece of advice I really tend to disagree with is something we hear very often, which is the classic, just do it, as a universal solution to things when people are scared. So like, oh my God, I'm really scared of quitting my job, or I'm really scared of, I don't know, going on a date. It could be anything for your life. And then some people just approach it as a, just do it, like ignore what you're feeling and all this, all these things. And I don't think that is like something that should be taken as a universal solution. Obviously, it might serve some people, it might work very well. But for me, for instance, it has always paralyzed me. And I always needed to find a process that perhaps exposed me gradually to that thing that scares me, or, find a way to do that is not just do it. So that's definitely something that bothers me when I hear it. And again, I know it works for some people, but we shouldn't take this so extremely, in my opinion.
Sometimes I think the best thing to do is just do it, but just do it small. Do something small. So don't go straight for quitting your job and becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Try it on the side first, or test it out first, because that's one of the things I think people often don't see. Is they think there's this big transformational life change that happens overnight.
Yeah.
But often it's because they did smaller things beforehand, but nobody ever saw them.
So true.
And that kind of distorts our image of what people are doing, because when they're small, you're not paying attention to them.
Yeah.
You only start paying attention to them once they're massive, or once they've got a following.
That is so true. I like to call that concept the minimum viable fear. It's like, if I'm scared of something and I cannot do it, cool. What's the minimum viable fear I can face today? And that's great. Like, it feels like progress, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's in different areas of life. So, for example, you talk about dating. If you're really scared to go on a date with somebody, maybe instead you go on you meet a stranger for something that's not romantic.
Yeah.
But it just gets your confidence up in meeting strangers.
Exactly.
And that might be less scary for you than going on a pure date.
Yeah, I really like that. It's like, how can I break that down into things that are less scary to me? Like, see this as a stair, right? If the next step of the stair is too high, when you cannot really go up there, cool. Yeah. How can I create, like something in between? Like, can I put a box there that's like easier to manage and easier to go up, right? Yeah. So I think that's a good way to visualize it.
The concept Tiago mentioned there with the minimum viable fear, think about that in your own life. So I know a lot of people listening are going to be wanting to make changes in their life. They want to do something new, but they're a bit scared about how to do it. How can you start? So, for example, I know some people start their social media pages under a pseudonym, and that way it's a lot less scary for them. So it's all these different little tips and tricks you can use to just make things a little bit easier, because you don't need to go all out there. So, for example, for me, when I started my writing, I didn't think anybody was ever going to read it. If I did, I probably wouldn't have used my real name. So it's just something to think about.
Yeah, I like that concept quite a lot. I also had a project where I was anonymous, and that taught me a lot, because at the end of the day, the knowledge is transferable, and you're not going to lose that energy and time you applied and you invested. You're just going to, carry that for the next project. So even if you evolve the project at the end of the day as well, like, perhaps in the beginning you don't appear so much, you write more, and then you start showing up if you want to, if you need to, So I like that. I quite like that.
Yeah. It's what I'm doing now, right? So I started off just writing. I never appeared in front of the camera. And then now slowly I'm doing more and more video stuff, more and more podcast stuff. It's helped because people might look at it and they see me today and think I started like this, and I didn't. It took me a long time to build up the confidence to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah. I think for me it was also a quite gradual concept. Like just for being here, just to talk in English, it's something that's scared me a lot more a long time ago. So now, for instance, I'm chilled because I know you. It's not like a known person, And I've taken steps before, right? I created content in Portuguese. I create content in video and podcasts, and now it's easier for me to just be here, and taking this next step, which is like, cool, let's answer questions and let's have a chat in English, which is new. So I like that process. Like, I find it quite fascinating, and it shows that it's actually more accessible, let's say, to create content and just show ideas online. It's not just for extroverts, or something that's definitely anyone can have a go at.
Yeah, because you did a lot of side projects before your current brand, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about that, what you started off with?
Yeah, sure. It could definitely be like any sort of projects. I always like to see side projects as this way of multiplying yourself and trying different interests. Because I think it's just human nature to have lots of interests. Although we do live in a specialized culture, when you get a job, whatever, people expect you to be specialized. We still like photography, and we still like, I don't know, to make miniatures of stuff. I don't know. You can have any hobbies and interests you like. And I think side projects are great for you to experiment with those and validate if you actually like doing the things. So I had different projects from working with a friend of mine who's in IT, and we developed this sort of app to... It wasn't really an app, but it's just it analyzes your WhatsApp messages and then gives you rankings of people. Like, this is the most annoying person of the chat, or this is a blah, 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 So you could just create assumptions based on, reading the data. I did the design, he did the programming. And then, I don't know, there's another project which played with languages. I'm quite into languages. I really like to learn languages. So it was basically like puns combining Portuguese and English. So it's a quite niche thing, but it was fun to do, and it's always exploring things I like. Because I feel like sometimes people are restricted, like, oh, this is my job and this is what I do. And then they have this frustration because they're not exploring things they want to. And side projects are a great way to do that.
Yeah. And on your Portuguese pun thing there, so you obviously know that I worked with a few Portuguese people in the past. So what I used to do is learn some of these phrases. And one, for example, is they'll say somebody looks as good as corn. And I don't know why Portuguese people think corn is attractive.
I love that one. We actually don't have that one in Brazil. They say that one in Portugal. And I find it so funny. And that's the beauty of it. It's like, cool, I like languages. I think this is funny. And I don't care if somebody else will think it's strange, because I'm never going to please everybody, But there's going to be those many people who are actually fascinated by language. And they are going to be happy about what I'm creating, And that's one thing. Is one of the most important things I've learned with this very niche project I had. It's like, I don't care that it's just me and my group of friends who are really into creating these puns. I'm going to share it, and then I'm going to see what happens. And I'm going to do it anonymously, and it's fine. And that taught me so much about social media. So that Instagram profile had I think 50,000 followers there. Yeah. Quite high engagement. It showed me how to grow on social, how to connect with people. It brought me opportunities that I would never, have gained. And it was just a side project that I was doing for fun. Yeah. And when I actually wanted to create my main project, which is the project that I now work on, all this knowledge just kind of automatically stayed in my brain. It just transferred to my new project. I stopped the other one because of focus. I wanted to prioritize. And it's great. It's just sometimes if you just put out what you have, which is weird inside you. You find people who are as weird as you, you know?
Yeah. So you're doing all these projects on the side and you're having great fun with it. What made you then make the shift to go full-time into this new brand? Did you kind of struggle to keep your projects going on the side, so you decided, I need to take this all the way? Or what was the decision-making that happened there?
So I was working as a graphic designer previously, which is something I quite like, and something that I definitely implement in my content. I really like to play with visuals, and I really like to visualize complex stuff using visuals. And well, I think that one of the biggest motivations is just having that like flexibility that I wanted to like choose when I want to work and which timings and where I want to work. I think it's good to have that geographic flexibility, something that I really appreciate, being able to work from everywhere, especially because my family is from Brazil. So you never know, maybe I need to spend a couple of weeks there because somebody, I don't know, is ill or whatever. I would like to have that option and be more flexible about it. And I think that's something I struggled with in that transition is the fact that like, obviously it's scary to just like do your own thing. And I'm not one of those people who, you know, oh my God, I was born with this entrepreneurial gene. I'm like, no, I just want to like create cool stuff, you know, like that's the kind of mindset I have. So for me, I made a list of things that were scaring me and stopping me from actually making that transition. I made a list of financial things that I needed to sort out and practical things, and also the psychological things like my fears and everything. And then when I made that list and I realized, oh my God, the financial stuff is solved, the practical stuff, when I say practical, it's more because like, oh, I'm Brazilian, but I'm also Portuguese. Can I stay here in this country? Like this sort of, you know, admin stuff. And then there was the emotional stuff, which is like, I am freaking scared. Like all these things, and like what scares me. And when I made all of this tangible, it was way easier to realize there was just the emotional stuff that was actually scaring me. So yeah, I guess that was like the main struggle, like in that transition. And there's also something I forgot to mention when it comes to like why I wanted to follow up with that project, which is the possibility of doing different projects, right? So I worked on my book, which was just launched. It's a book in Portuguese, unfortunately. Like, there's no point in me talking about it. I was like, damn, my creative content in Portuguese.
You can translate it for us, or like give us a bit of an idea of what it's about.
Yeah,
I'm sure when it goes worldwide, then we'll get an English copy.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, but it's basically a journey book. So it talks about this character who has an idea, and then it goes through all the sort of creative process. But it's not just the practical bit of like, oh, put ideas on a paper and then get these ideas and blah. But actually the things that happen in real life, which is like, I don't want to get started because this idea is so perfect in my head. So what's going to happen if I start doing it? It's not going to be perfect anymore. So it's basically the character going through all these stages, like from the start until, you know, actually showing the idea and then getting, you know, maybe haters saying, oh my God, that's horrible. You know, how do you do this sort of stuff? So it's a book about all of these moments in the creative process. And the fact that like I can work on a project like this, like a book, and then later be focused on working on the next project, which is a course, and then focus on the next project, which is something else. I really like how I'm exploring different sort of media, how I'm exploring different projects. And that's a restriction I had before as a designer. And as a content creator, I can explore a little more. It's like, cool, I can do different things. I'm a human being who has lots of interests and I can actually use them. And that fascinates me, like that idea of being able to be versatile, creatively speaking.
Yeah, with the list you made, how long did you take over that process? So like, was it something you just did in a day and you're like, okay, this is my solution? Or did it take you a while to go through that?
It did take me a while. I always like to digest this sort of stuff. Like I need to like write it down. I need to put it in front of me so I can see from another perspective. And really, I think it really took me like a month to like make that decision, because I realized I was always looking at the list and I was realizing how much all of those fears, those boxes I needed to check, you know, like they would never be checked until I left my job. There was no way I could do that beforehand. So I needed to be, you know, like I needed to actually take that jump. And the fact that all the other bits of the list, so like the practical and the financial one, were checked, that was great, because it showed me like everything that was under my control and that I could do is done. Now it's all about the unpredictability of life. It just happens that I need to take that step. Otherwise I would never be able to, you know, actually do it. So I think that was comforting, knowing that like this very clear separation of what's in my control, what's outside, and the fact that I did everything that I could, which was in my control. I think that realizing that very basic like Stoic principle was basically like,
What was something that was on the emotional fear list? Like, do you remember any of them?
Yeah, it's basically like, oh, people thinking that I'm a failure if things go wrong afterwards. People, I don't know, judging me because they don't really understand what the job is, because like being a content creator is quite a recent thing. So there was lots of things that I realized that, oh, when I was actually, trying to see each fear by fear, there are really things that I don't care much about. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you're just like very scared of this massive cloud and you're like, oh my God, it's such a massive fear. And then when you actually start looking at the details, oh, I actually don't care so much about that. And then obviously there's the ones that I cared a lot, which is like myself, like dealing with the failure. Like if I fail, what does it mean to me? Like, am I going to be super sad, or actually, no, I'm going to be proud because I tried, So going one by one and really trying to, I'm not saying like create a proper answer in a form or whatever. It doesn't mean, I was way more casual than that. But like just going through them and realizing, yeah, it's actually possible. It's not that much of a big deal. It was very comforting and gave me the confidence to do so.
It's the same thing. I think a lot of people have this. It's a cloud of worry. And that's really hard to deal with, because what do you do with a cloud, right? Whereas if you can try and put it down and say, like, these are the exact things what are bothering you, then you can deal with those. You can't just deal with a ball of doubt and worry. And I think that's really important, of just don't let it sink you down where you've got this feeling in your stomach where you don't feel good.
Yeah.
Try to get that out and try to work out what is it exactly that the problem is. And you might find that the problem is too big for you. And that's okay, but as long as you know what it is, in the future you might be able to have a different mindset and you might be okay with those problems.
Yeah. Like, if the fear is too big and you actually realize, oh damn, I took it out of the cloud, I had a very good look at it, I zoomed in, and it's way too big. Cool. Yeah. How can I break this down to, something smaller?
Yeah.
And then I think that's the beauty of it. It's like just understanding that the cloud will always be scary, whatever this is. If you don't make it tangible, it's very tricky to go through it. Yeah.
Is there anything at the moment you're struggling with? So you've now been doing this full time for a while.
Yeah, I think the biggest struggle is like, I like my project a lot. And then there's not a clear separation between work and fun anymore, because I think my project is generally fun to do. And I really love to, like, I don't know, answer to people's comments and like stuff that people don't normally enjoy as creators sometimes. They're just like, oh, I gotta do this. But I'm like, no, I genuinely like to do it. And for me, it's tricky because sometimes it's a Saturday and I don't know what to do. I'm just bored at home and I'm like, let me create something. But actually it's very obviously healthy for me to rest and to just take a step, away from it and just do other things. It's not just good creatively, but also good like as like a human being who depends on like recharging energies, right? So I think that's my biggest struggle right now, is trying to reconnect with the things that I like. And I think I'm slowly doing that. Like, for instance, going back to playing football, that's what we've been playing on Saturdays, for instance. So that time on Saturdays, sometimes I would use it to create, but now I'm playing football, so I don't think about content creation. Let me try to set boundaries to work, although work is fun, not all the time, obviously, but work is fun, cool, but it's still something I need to take a break from.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying there as well is, if you don't take that break, then eventually it will come to a point where work isn't fun anymore. So by taking these breaks regularly, you allow it to stay fun. Whereas once it becomes your entire life, maybe you do that for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month or a year.
Yeah.
But then sooner or later you reach crisis point. Whereas if you're taking breaks throughout, you don't reach that crisis point. You get to recharge and you go back up again, then you go down. Whereas if you just go like that, sooner or later.
Yeah.
So I'm making hand gestures. So if you're listening to this, you won't be able to see it. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see what I'm doing. So I think that's a really good way to think about it, is take the breaks even if you don't need them.
Yeah.
Rather than, it's the prevention rather than the cure, right?
Yeah. We really think of rest as a reward, when actually it should be really, really like seen as part of the process.
Yeah.
And I think that mindset shift is very important to make things sustainable.
Yeah. And I think one of the things related to that as well is like, do things that are pointless, isn't it? Where like football is, you can say, oh, you should do it because it's like fitness or whatever like that. But we don't play because it makes us fit. We play because it's fun.
Yeah.
Do things that are fun because that makes you happier. And then the work and everything like that is better off because you're a happier person overall.
Yeah. And really trying to like, there's something that happened throughout the pandemic. I don't know if you thought about that too, but I feel like people really felt like I need a hobby and it needs to be cool. Like, I need to bake bread and it gotta be amazing. I'm like, I don't want to bake bread. Like, I want to maybe I just want to like reconnect with the stuff I like, even if they're stupid, I was reading your newsletter, the one about the TV. Like some people are just like, oh my God, yeah, I'm so cool. I don't have a TV. But like, you do whatever you want to do with your free time. If you want to watch TV, just go there. Like find your way to plug out, Sometimes your way of plugging off is playing football. Sometimes it can be reading a book that doesn't make you less or more than other people. It can just be fun. What you do for time really doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think one of the interesting things about reading books as well is that in the past, it used to be the same way TV was, right? So people would be like, oh, why are you reading a book for? You should be outside and enjoying yourself and being fit.
That makes sense, yeah.
And that's the way it was treated in the past. Whereas now, reading a book is seen as really virtuous. And it's interesting the way that attitudes have shifted over the last few years, whereas now TV is bad, but book is good. And it's the same thing in many ways. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
You can learn from a TV or you can learn from a book. Not one better than the other. Yeah. But we have this mindset of, oh, if somebody reads a book, that means they're intelligent. It's like, well, if you read a documentary, or if you watch a documentary, or you watch something which teaches something about life, and it can be fiction, it can be whatever. Yeah. Why does that make you any less so?
Yeah, it's a very not up-to-date perspective, right? It's just like if you write stock photos study, there's going to be the person reading a book. You're not going to find a person like maybe nowadays we do have some pictures of this, but like you're not going to see a person seeing a video on YouTube. When actually I learned quite a lot, from tutorials on YouTube. Yeah. So I do think it's like an old-fashioned way of seeing things. But hopefully we will like catch up on that and update the mindset of that. It doesn't need to be that polarized. Oh my God, books are smart. TV is not,
Yeah, and sometimes you shouldn't do things based on how other people perceive you. It should be based on what you enjoy, what helps you learn, what helps you do what makes you happy at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Because even when you said about your emotional fears, the first few you said there, all about what other people think of you.
Yeah.
And then you realize those aren't important. What matters more is like how you feel about yourself.
Yeah, it is true. I agree with you. I think that sometimes we just try to fit in like whatever is considered logical or safer. I think there's a big fear in general of like uncertainty, right? Oh my God, if I'm doing this way and then everybody does it the other way, I might be wrong. But actually maybe not. You're just more comfortable with that and that's totally fine. There's some people who don't like to listen to podcasts. They prefer to watch things and that's okay. Like you're never going to please everyone, and there's no one size fits all solution. So I think that sort of mindset is very important as well. It has helped me a lot, at least.
Yeah. So what are you working towards now? You've got the content creation which is going really well. You've just had your book out. Are you living your successful lifestyle, your ideal lifestyle now?
I don't live a successful. I'm like, what is success? I'm not really sure. I'm like, I'm one of these people that don't have that definition very well kind of established. But I do connect success quite a lot with like choices, like being able to make choices. So I think that if most of the time, because life is about choices, right? Like choices, decisions that lead you to somewhere. So if most of your time you're able to actually make choices you want to do rather than you have to do, for me, I think that could be something close to a definition as success for me. And I'm not quite there yet. Like I feel like I sometimes still need to do lots of stuff, right? Super boring and blah, blah, blah. And I would like to reduce the amount of times I have to do that. But I think I'm on the way of building this. I'm a very patient person. And I know especially with the internet, like you do take some time like to build an online presence, like to get like some systems going. And I think I'm on the way to do that. But one thing that's very important for me is that how I'm trying to build my business as well. It's like rather than thinking that, oh yeah, now I'm in the stage where I need to work a lot so later I can just like rest. And I don't believe in that. I think it's very hard for you to get out of that stage because it's always going to be something else. So what I try and do is to build it in a sustainable way. Like, there was obviously that moment where I was overlapping with my job and I needed to kind of go the extra mile, but I knew that wasn't sustainable. Like I knew that if I did for a bit longer, I would need to like slow down my pace and like go. So nowadays I really believe in that of like, for instance, I'm going to take a week off social media, I don't know, next week. And oh my God, but you're a content creator. You're going to be away completely from social media for a week. Yeah, I want to try to do that, because if I never try to do that, how can I find out if it works, right? I have to take that risk. And if I find out that it doesn't, maybe it's a sign. Maybe it's a sign I should review what I'm doing. Or it's a sign that I have to test maybe, if I do it 3 days and I just have a quick look, does it work, right? So I'm always up for testing these things of like, let's see how I can keep building this sustainably. And because for me, that would be close to success, let's say.
So one point related to that came up to my head when you were talking is that when Tiago came in, he noticed I had a dishwasher. And he was really happy. He was like, I need a dishwasher. So when he's talking about his successful lifestyle and how the things he needs to do and wants to do, I think for Tiago, getting a dishwasher so he doesn't have to do the dishes would be his ideal lifestyle, help him live that life, right?
Yeah. I don't know how you feel when you come back from holidays. When I come back from holidays, I come like, oh my God, there's so many changes I want to implement, you know. So I think that also taking a step back helps quite a lot in that. It's like for you to notice what is your dishwasher.
Yeah. It's also understanding yourself, isn't it? You need to know what you like and what you don't like, and not based on what other people think they enjoy and what they don't enjoy. Yeah,
it's very true. So I think it's interesting. I think it's always that balance of like what you value, what you can create systems for, you know. And at the end of the day, I don't, how can I say this? Like, I don't torture myself so much if I'm like, my God, oh yeah, tomorrow I need a solution for this. You know what I mean? Like, no, it's fine. If other people like it ahead of me, let me take my time. Let me see like what I actually want to build, what actually makes sense to outsource. Like, I don't rush with these things. No.
The same task can be interesting for one person and then a burden for the other person. So you've got to decide what you want to separate out and what you want to outsource. Not based on what I do or based on what Tiago does.
Yeah, it's so true. So at the moment, for instance, the podcast editing, I do have, again, a podcast in Portuguese. And it's the same, like there's a person who does an amazing job editing, and I find it amazing that it's the kind of thing that, you know, we just record it, the person takes care of it, takes very good care of it, does an amazing job. And if I was to do it, I would perhaps also overthink it, because I would be like, my God, yeah, I want to create this effect here, let's add some, you know, some noises, or let's add some effects. And I think also taking that step back, of having full control of the process is very interesting as well. Like, I had some creative insights, like just letting somebody else do that part of the job, and like, wow, they got to a place I would never think of. I love that they thought about this because they have an outside perspective. So there's the power, something very powerful there as well.
So what's one mindset shift you think people could make that are listening today that'd make a positive difference to their lives?
Bubbles. I think bubbles, this notion of the social bubble, if you're a designer, you are going to have this very clear mindset of like, maybe I'm horrible at what I do because look at these people, like these 10 people who inspire me because they're amazing, and you know my work is so bad. But actually no, maybe you're just inside your bubble, and actually you do that thing way better than 99% of the world population. And I think that very, very, very small aspect of life, like just being aware that we live in separate bubbles, like my family bubble, my work bubble, whatever, can be helpful in many ways. Like for you to charge more for your work because you understand more your value, for like even facing imposter syndrome, because you realize that actually, no, I can't do these things. You know what I mean? It's not because that other person perhaps has a bit more experience than me or a lot more experience that I can't. You know, that doesn't make me bad. So yeah, I think that helps us with many things. Communicating better as well. Communicating better outside of bubbles, not using acronyms or like terms that are hard with other people. So I think that the sort of mindset of like we live in bubbles and that affects how we work and how we interact with other people is like a massive thing. It's so simple, it makes such a massive difference.
Yeah, because even if you look at, for example, anything with football, like dance, anything, people always compare themselves to the people ahead of them.
Yeah.
And they forget that they're actually moved quite far already. So they lose the sight of the progress they've made. So for example, with a dance form I do, Bhangra, I'm probably in the top 1% of the world of it because most of the people in the world don't do it. So by the very nature of them never having experienced it before, going to 1 or 2 classes automatically puts you in the top percentage in the world.
Yeah.
And it's something which you don't think about, right? Even with football, which is a much more popular sport, most people might have played it a little bit, but if you're playing every week, you're probably better than most people at that too. But we always compare ourselves to the person who's playing with us.
Yeah.
And it can make us lose sight of, like you said, of how we're actually pretty good compared to the average human being.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you're good at or what you do. You're going to be better at things than most other people in the world are, by the very nature of you spending more time on it than other people do.
Yeah, and then that leads us to another very good question, which is how to not lose sight, right, of the progress. And I think a good way to do it, and that's the way I like to do it, it's not the right answer, is just trying to help people out, people that perhaps are in the same journey as you. You don't need to focus so much on like, are they ahead? Are they on the same spot? Are they behind? But like, if you just generally find joy in helping, it also helps you put things in perspective. Because, whoa, this person is asking me this question, which is something I did a year ago or 2 years ago, and I know how to answer, I know how to reply. And just paying attention to those small moments of, cool, I was able to help. And also I put in perspective how much I've learned since that last experience, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a healthy balance between, let's admire this person that I think is ahead, but also like, let's be mindful of how much we progressed.
Yeah. And it's you can have both, right? It doesn't need to be, you don't need to think you're amazing, you're better than the rest of the world. You can appreciate, oh, I'm pretty good, but there's still more that I can learn. And it's having that right mindset of, you don't need to put yourself down so much. I think sometimes I think it's strange that when people become good, because they're more aware of how much they've got to go to become the best, it's something to put themselves down more. Whereas when somebody's new to something, then they know they're bad, but it's fine because they're new.
Yeah.
And it's kind of trying to keep that mindset of it's okay to be bad at something because it means you can improve. And that could be quite exciting, that you can go from nothing to like 90% good pretty quickly. And it's always this thing as well, I see the curve, right? It's always harder to make those final little bits to become the best in the world than to become at a level where you're better than 99% of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so true. And I find that nowadays, especially, it's so hard not to compare yourself because of social media and stuff. It's basically like we never in history had so much stimulus for comparison, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to remember we don't have all the data. Like we'll never have all the data. We don't know exactly. If we were to build an infographic about this other person, we wouldn't be able to, because it's a lot of perspective in there. It's not facts, it's not numbers, it's not, you know, even if we were to build an infographic about ourselves, we would have, you know, a
big
struggle.
gaps,
Big gaps of information there. So that helps me quite a lot as well in that sense. I always think that like, cool, these are the facts. I don't know, maybe this person knew another one, and maybe this person came from a family who has a lot of money. I don't know their context, and it's not my role to assume, right?
Yeah,
so I do agree with you. I think this element of comparison, like, it's something we need to pay attention to quite a lot.
Yeah. And I think it does what you said, like it makes such a positive difference to your mind if you can understand how toxic your bubble can be sometimes, where you don't realize that you've done pretty well, you've done a lot better than you think you have. And also just understanding people from different backgrounds, where sometimes I know people think, oh, the other side is evil or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you can understand that's just my bubble and the way I think, and the other people aren't necessarily evil, they just have a different way of thinking to me.
Yeah.
It makes just life a little bit less tense as well.
No, 100%. I 100% agree. And I think it's just like genuinely good to think outside the bubble. You know what I mean? Like just to kind of try to develop skills outside the bubble, try to communicate with people out the bubble, try to, and as you said, like there's tension there. So like, how do I relieve that? Why do I need to leave that in such a tense way? And just this perspective, this ability to take a step out of the bubble, I think makes such a difference.
It's been a pleasure to chat to you, Tiago.
Yeah.
Where can the listeners hear more from you?
Perhaps direct people to my Instagram. So it's called Tira do Papel. There's probably going to be a link in the description somewhere. So you can check my things there. Very soon, I'll be creating content in Medium. So maybe one day, you know, we chat again and I'll be able to say, I am this guy from Medium. But for now, there's no content in English. You can check my workout at Tira do Papel. It would be a pleasure to chat with you, actually. Drop me a message there if you listen to this. It would be nice to chat.
Yeah. I'm trying to convince him to create a new Instagram in English because his pictures are really cool, but I don't know what any of it means.
Yeah.
So I go through his polls and I just vote on something random to see if I get the right answer.
Thank you.
And the final thing is, what's one small thing that's brought you joy recently?
Ooh, small thing that brought me joy recently. I think I take a lot of joy from random messages I get. So I think the most recent one was just replying to my newsletters. I do get lots of cute messages. As I said, many content creators don't appreciate that. They're just like, thank you, that's it. But I generally take the time to like read through, imagine how people are thinking. And I think that like the most recent one was that, just being able to like see somebody complimenting my work so deeply, creating the time to write down why my work has influenced their life in a positive way. And that makes me like, wow.
If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I'd love it if you could leave me a 5-star review. It really helps get the message out further. Wherever you're listening, it would be awesome if you could subscribe and to share on your social media channels. If you want to see more of my work and advice, you can find all of the links in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you have a lovely day. And I hope you have a lovely day. And I hope you have a lovely day.